Alright, this is an instructional video on how to use MyClassProgress. MyClassProgress is a blended learning management tool, which means it's designed to be used by a teacher who's going to assess their students to figure out what each student knows and doesn't know. Then give them opportunities to learn the material that they don't know. That could be in a small group with a teacher, or that could be independently on a computer, or maybe in a group doing some kind of activity. Once they've had an opportunity to learn whatever skill or standard they didn't know, they're given a chance to take an assessment on that to see if they've mastered it. To begin with, let's talk about students. In MyClassProgress, it's all of the students in your school are going to be loaded up on your screen. And in MyClassProgress, you can create groups. Typically, this is going to be your first block, your second block, your third block, although you can make as many groups as you want. I've got a group of my 7th grade students that are really close to being proficient. I've got a list of students that are advanced, a list of students that are struggling. You can make as many groups as you want. And then you can look through your roster of all the students in your school, and you can just simply add them to whatever groups you feel like they belong to. Once you've got your classes set up, and it's also easy to just add a new student or to remove a student if they have left your school. We also have to talk about questions. In MyClassProgress, you can create questions, really straightforward. Every question is aligned to one of your standards. From there, you type in the question, the answer choices. You can select a skill that it aligns to kind of allow you to sort your results a little bit better. And that's it. You can create questions for students to practice, questions for a quiz, or questions for a benchmark. Quizzes are always going to be over one standard. Benchmarks can be over lots of different standards. It's easy to see the questions that have been created. All that you've got to do is take a look and see all of the questions that line up to that standard. And for each question, you can see what % of your students have answered that question correctly. And you also see out of how many students that have been given that question on a quiz. Now, we talked about skills a second ago. We're on our settings page right now. Here you can select how many questions you want there to be on a given quiz. You can select which skills you want that quiz to cover, and you can add new skills or delete skills. This is also where you create modules. Modules are the different opportunities that you're going to give your students to learn the material for that standard. This could be an online website that students can practice. This could be an online video. You could even create a module that says, read these pages in a book and answer these questions. You can create a module to do pretty much anything that you feel is going to help your students. And then when you assign it to them, they'll be given the instructions that you've created. From there, we're going to go to the Assign page. This is where you assign students work. I'm going to clear everything assigned right now so you can sort of see how this gets built. Right now, the standard that's selected is about distance, rate, and time. The blue boxes are your quiz. You can assign quizzes to all of your students, or, I'm going to remove that, you could assign the quiz just to students who are, say, below basic. You want to give those students an opportunity to retake the quiz. You could also say, before I give a student a quiz, I want them to practice. You can see I've built 4 different modules. That's a Khan Academy module, that's a video, that's another Khan Academy module, and that's a worksheet that I have that students can download that's linked in the assignment. We talked earlier about how you can create practice questions. You can make questions that you just want students to see over and over again and practice. This way they can kind of rehearse what the questions are going to look like before they actually take the quiz. Any of these things you can assign to any subgroup of students. Maybe I want this to be to all of my basic students, and I want this to be assigned to all my below basic students. And this is sort of a more challenging task, so I'm going to give that to my advanced and my proficient students for them to practice on. Once you've given students assignments, the students can log in and they can see what you've given them to work on. Notice I assign proportions to myself, so when I click on it, it's going to say go to Khan Academy and work on proportions 1. I can also see every standard that I'm responsible for that year, what my current grade is, categorized by the standards I'm almost there on, the standards I'm struggling with, and the standards that I have mastered. This is where students can request a quiz. They can say, I've worked on this, I've gotten better, I want to request to take that quiz again. If a teacher approves it, it'll show up as a retake, and students can click it, and they'll be taken to the quiz page. Now, on the quiz, students can indicate words that they're struggling with, which will then show up here, and if they click on it, it'll take them to a definition of that word. And students can click on a quiz to reflect on how prepared they felt if they're surprised by their grade and what they would like to do to get better. They can also see all of the modules you've created so they can work independently to learn the material if they feel like they need to improve. Lastly, once students have taken a quiz, you can see results. The first type of results is just an overview. You can see students' quiz grade, you can sort by grade, or you can sort by date or last name. You can also see their grade for that standard on the last benchmark that they took. There's other options available, like being able to see their grade on a given skill or where they're at on their practice if you choose to enable it. Columns and tables can be sorted to make figuring out or comparing data easier. And every page has question boxes that if you're not sure what this page does, you can click on and it'll load up help so you can understand what the page does. You can also see benchmark results, which will be broken up by standard for each benchmark. So I can see an overview of how each student's done, and I can also see a breakdown by standard of which students have mastered that skill and which students are still struggling. I can see my students' reflections on how prepared they felt, if they're surprised by their grade, what they would like to do to get better, which students want to work online and which students want to be in a small group. And you can also see an overview for each question that was given on the student's reflection of whether or not they felt like they got the question right and what they thought was the hardest about the question, and any comments about what they did to solve the problem. Lastly, your gradebook gives you a big overview of each standard. I can look at this page and see which students have struggled with any given standard, and which standards the majority of my class has mastered or the majority of my class still needs to work on. This is an overview of how my class progress works. For any of those pages, you can select as many groups as you want visible at any given point in time and save. And for teachers who teach multiple grade levels or multiple subjects, changing between standards or grade levels is easy. This is just an overview of the major concepts in my class progress and how to use it. Thank you very much.